For decades, humanity had struggled against the alien Aquarites, a ruthless race that ruled the water planet with an iron grip. Floating cities dotted the horizon like distant islands, and beneath the waves, massive fortresses lurked, housing the enslaved human settlers who toiled for their aquatic overlords. The mission to free them wasn't one of rescue, however. It was something far more dangerous. Commander Jake Cross, a seasoned Navy SEAL with years of Black Ops experience, stood at the helm of the stealth submersible Poseidon. Around him, his team, handpicked for their expertise in underwater warfare, was checking their gear and preparing for the dive of their lives. Hydrones was considered untouchable, a world where no human military force had ever set foot. Until now, Cross surveyed his team, each one a vital piece of the operation. Hank Martinez, the best diver in the unit and the team's resident wisecracker, was securing his harpoon gun with a smirk on his face. This the part where we realized we forgot to bring towels. Hank grinned, eyes twinkling with mischief beneath his helmet. Cross couldn't help but crack a small smile. Hank's jokes, no matter how bad they were, always cut through the tension. And tension was evident. The weight of the mission sat heavily on all of them. "Save the jokes for when we're out of here, Hank," Cross said, voice calm but authoritative. "You'll get plenty of chances for stand-up after we pull this off." "Assuming we don't get eaten by the local seafood," Hank shot back, still grinning. Poseidon glided silently through the dark waters, its stealth systems masking it from Aquarite sonar. Outside, the alien seascape unfolded in eerie bioluminescence, strange creatures darting in and out of view. The deeper they went, the more alien the environment became. Towering coral-like structures rose from the seabed, glowing faintly in the dim light, casting long shadows over the abyss. The mission was simple in its directive but brutal in its execution. Infiltrate Kraken's Maw, the underwater fortress of Lord Krexer, the Aquarite warlord responsible for the enslavement of thousands of humans. Capture him, and shut down the tidal core, a weapon hidden deep within the fortress, rumored to be capable of unleashing planet-wide floods that would decimate nearby human colonies. If Krexer activated it, millions would die. Approaching target zone, the pilot's voice crackled through their comms. "We'll be dropping you just outside the kelp forest near Kraken's Maw. You've got a narrow window before the patrol cycle." Cross checked his equipment one last time. "All right, everyone, listen up. We move fast and quiet. Stick to the plan, and we'll be in and out before they even know we're there." The team nodded silently, their faces grim and focused. Hank, however, couldn't resist one last comment. "Fast and quiet, just like prom night," he said, earning a few chuckles from the squad. The Poseidon slowed to a halt as it reached the drop point. Outside, the kelp forest loomed, its massive, flowing tendrils waving lazily in the current. It would provide the perfect cover for their approach. Cross signaled his team, and one by one, they slipped into the water, the cold embrace of the alien ocean wrapping around them as they descended into darkness. The water was thick and heavy, pressing down on their suits as they navigated through the tangled kelp. The only sounds were their steady breaths and the soft hum of their oxygen tanks. As they neared the fortress, the underwater currents grew stronger, tugging at them with unseen hands. The pressure increased and the temperature dropped sharply, but the SEALs pushed forward, driven by the mission. In the distance, the massive shadow of Kraken's Maw came into view. It was an imposing structure built into the side of a deep trench, its spires twisting like the tentacles of a great beast. Lights flickered across its surface, and Aquarite patrols, both mechanical and organic, circled the fortress like sharks waiting for prey. "Stay low," Cross ordered, his voice barely a whisper in the team's comms. "We're just a few clicks from the entry point." Hank swam up next to Cross, his harpoon gun at the ready. "I don't know, Commander. Looks like a fish fry waiting to happen." "Keep it together, Hank," Cross replied, eyes focused on the fortress. "We get in, we take out Krexer, and we shut down that weapon. No mistakes." The SEALs moved as one, a silent, deadly force slipping through the water unnoticed. As they neared the outer perimeter, Cross spotted a group of Aquarite drones sweeping the area. "Hold position," he said, motioning for the team to stop. The drones passed overhead, their lights scanning the kelp forest. For a moment, Cross held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. If they were spotted now, the entire mission would be compromised. But the drones moved on, oblivious to the danger lurking below. "Clear," Cross said, releasing the tension in his shoulders. "Let's move." With the patrol out of sight, the team made their final approach toward Kraken's Maw. The mission had only just begun, and already the stakes were climbing. The real challenge lay ahead, deep within the fortress, where Lord Krexer awaited. The pressure of Hydrone's depths weighed heavily on the SEAL team as they maneuvered through the fortress's outer defenses. The alien ocean seemed to pulse with life, a living entity that both concealed and threatened. Commander Jake Cross led the way, his visor dimly lit by the glowing aquatic flora surrounding them, casting long, ethereal shadows. They had passed through the kelp forest undetected, but the true challenge now lay ahead, breaching Kraken's Maw without alerting the Aquarite forces. "Eyes up, Hank. We're not home free yet." Cross muttered through the comms as Hank Martinez fiddled with his equipment. Hank adjusted his harpoon gun and swam up next to Cross, a grin evident in his voice. "Relax, boss. Just admiring the alien decor. Kind of reminds me of a resort I stayed at in Cancun, except, no margaritas or air." Despite the levity, the tension was palpable. Hank's humor was his way of coping, but even he could sense the magnitude of what lay ahead. Kraken's Maw, their target, loomed larger with each meter they swam closer. Its jagged spires twisted upward from the ocean floor, merging with the natural coral structures, making it look like part of the planet itself. Lights from the fortress gleamed like predatory eyes, scanning the ocean for intruders. "Entry point in sight," Cross said as the fortress's underbelly came into view, its outer walls smooth but dotted with access hatches. "Their maintenance hatch, 30 degrees off starboard." They approached silently, staying just beyond the reach of the automated patrols that swept the perimeter. As Cross hacked the hatch's controls, Hank hovered nearby, his ever-present humor masking the strain of the mission. "So, what do you think Krexer's superweapon looks like?" Hank whispered, "I'm picturing a giant rubber duck of death." "Focus, Hank," Cross said as the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. "We need to stay ahead of patrols, or you're going to find out the hard way." One by one, the SEALs slipped inside the narrow access tunnel, swimming through a series of dimly lit, water-filled corridors. The fortress was eerily quiet, but every ripple in the water felt like it could reveal their presence. The alien design of the interior was both disorienting and claustrophobic, with twisting tunnels that seemed to curve in unnatural ways, as though designed to confuse intruders. As they swam deeper into the fortress, Cross couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every corridor was a maze of alien coral and bioluminescent tubing, but more concerning were the faint rumblings that echoed through the walls. "Anyone else feel that?" Sergeant Brooks, another team member, whispered through the comms. "Feels like something's moving down here." Cross frowned but didn't break pace. "Stay sharp. We're getting close to the central core." Krexer's weapon could be active. The rumbling grew louder, and the water began to pulse with an almost rhythmic vibration. Hank, always the first to break the silence, spoke up again. "If this thing explodes while we're still inside, I'm officially requesting hazard pay." But the humor couldn't mask the growing unease. The corridors began to narrow, and the water temperature fluctuated wildly, growing colder with each passing minute. They were entering the heart of Kraken's Maw, and every instinct told Cross that something dangerous lay ahead. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber, and the SEALs stopped in their tracks. They had reached the core of the fortress, an enormous, spherical room filled with alien machinery and glowing with an ominous blue light. At its center was a massive, swirling vortex of energy, suspended in the water like a miniature storm. "There it is," Cross said, "the tidal core. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The energy vortex pulsed with raw power, clearly capable of unleashing devastating forces. Cross recognized the danger immediately. If Krexer activated the core, it would send catastrophic tidal waves across the entire sector, flooding human colonies on nearby planets and killing millions. "We need to disable that thing," Cross said, his voice low and urgent. "Martinez, you're on point. Get us in range." Hank swam forward cautiously, eyeing the control panels surrounding the core. "On it, boss. Let's just hope this alien tech isn't too far removed from turning off a pool pump." As Hank began working on the control panel, the rest of the team took up defensive positions, scanning the room for threats. The hum of the core grew louder, and the temperature in the chamber dropped even further. It was clear the system was powering up, and they had little time before it would be too late. "Martinez, how's it going?" Cross asked, his eyes flicking between Hank and the swirling vortex. "Almost there, just a few more." Hank's voice trailed off as his fingers worked over the alien interface, frustration creeping in. "Come on, you oversized aquarium filter." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber, and the water around them surged with energy. The lights in the room turned from blue to a deep, menacing red. "They know we're here," Cross growled. "SEAL team, prepare for contact." The fortress had been alerted to their presence. Now, the mission was a race against time. Disable the tidal core before reinforcements arrived, or risk everything. Cross's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of the ocean pressing down on them as they stood on the brink of either success or annihilation. "Get ready, Hank," Cross said, tightening his grip on his harpoon gun. "We're about to have company." The red lights flashing through the tidal core chamber pulse with an eerie intensity, signaling the imminent arrival of aquarite reinforcements. The water churned violently around the seals, and the hum of the power vortex in the center of the room grew louder, like a beast awakening from slumber. Commander Jake Cross knew they were out of time. "Hank, status on that shutdown?" Cross barked, his voice tense but controlled. "Hank, Martinez slammed his fist against the alien control panel in frustration. "Almost there. This thing's tougher than a high school locker combination." Cross's eyes darted toward the main entrance of the chamber, where the thick, coral-like doors were beginning to grind open. Shadowy figures stirred in the water beyond, the unmistakable forms of aquarite warriors. Humanoid creatures with sleek, armored bodies and sharp, thin limbs were moving into position. "We've got incoming," Sergeant Brooks shouted, his weapon trained on the opening. Cross gave the signal. "Weapons hot. Hold the line." The SEALs positioned themselves defensively around the core, harpoon guns and aquatic rifles at the ready. The first aquarite soldier darted into the chamber with unnatural speed, its elongated body slicing through the water like a knife. Brooks fired the first shot, and the spear from his harpoon gun embedded itself in the creature's chest, sending it spiraling into the abyss. But more followed, their numbers multiplying like a tidal wave. Cross fired off a quick burst, taking down two more of the warriors as they swarmed in, their movements fluid and deadly. The room erupted into chaos, beams of light and spears cutting through the water in a deadly dance. "They're everywhere," Brooks shouted, taking cover behind a pillar of alien machinery. Hank kept his focus on the panel, fingers flying across the alien interface. "I'm working on it, but I could use a little less stress from the whole army of angry fishmen situation." Just as another wave of aquarite soldiers surged into the chamber, the water rippled violently and a massive, imposing figure appeared at the entrance. His body was larger and more heavily armored than the others, his form exuding raw power and authority. This was Lord Krexer, the warlord of Hydrones, and the mastermind behind the human enslavement. Krexer's eyes, glowing a deep, menacing blue, locked on the Cross with a predatory gaze. His voice, distorted by the water, rumbled through the chamber like a rolling storm. "You dare invade my domain, human? You will drown in these depths." Cross narrowed his eyes, raising his weapon. Not today, Krexer. With a flick of his massive tail, Krexer propelled himself toward the SEAL team, faster than any of his soldiers. He was a blur of armored muscle and speed, cutting through the water with terrifying precision. Cross fired a shot, but Krexer deflected it with a swipe of his armored arm, closing the distance between them in seconds. The warlord swung a massive, trident-like weapon toward Cross, who barely managed to parry it with his harpoon gun. The force of the impact sent him reeling back, his feet barely finding purchase on the chamber floor. Krexer advanced, relentless. You are nothing before the might of Hydrones. This planet will drown your people, just as it has enslaved them. Cross rolled to the side, dodging another strike. Not if we stop that weapon, he growled through gritted teeth. Just then, Hank let out a triumphant shout. Got it. Core is shut down. The swirling energy vortex in the center of the room flickered and dimmed as Hank finished deactivating the tidal core. The imminent threat of the planet-wide flood dissipated, but Krexer remained as dangerous as ever. Furious, Krexer roared, the sound vibrating through the water. You will pay for your defiance, human. He lunged toward Cross, his trident aimed for a killing blow. But Cross was ready. Using the momentum of the water, he pivoted, dodging the attack, and drove his harpoon gun straight into Krexer's side, the spear piercing through the warlord armor with a sickening crunch. Krexer howled in pain, thrashing violently as blood clouded the water around him. You think this will stop me? I think it'll slow you down, Cross growled, keeping his grip on the weapon. With a powerful yank, he pulled the harpoon free, sending Krexer crashing into the chamber wall. The warlord, weakened but not defeated, snarled at the SEALs. Hydrones will never fall. You are fools to think you can stand against us. Cross, breathing hard, stood over the fallen warlord. We're not here to stand against you, Krexer. We're here to end you. With one final motion, Cross aimed his harpoon gun and fired directly at Krexer's chest. The spear hit its mark, and Krexer's body slumped to the ground, his glowing eyes flickering out. The remaining Aquarite soldiers, witnessing the fall of their leader, hesitated before retreating, vanishing into the dark waters. The chamber grew eerily silent, the threat finally over. Cross lowered his weapon and turned to his team. Hank floated nearby, watching the retreating Aquarites with a smirk. Well, that wasn't so bad, Hank quipped, clearly relieved. I was expecting something more dramatic, like the planet exploding or a sea monster, but this works. Cross shook his head, unable to suppress a small grin. You did good, Hank. Let's get out of here before they change their minds. The team regrouped, exhausted but triumphant. Hydrones was no longer impenetrable. Krexer was dead, the tidal core deactivated, and the Aquarites' grip on the planet broken. As they swam toward their extraction point, the waters of Hydrones felt just a little lighter, the promise of freedom rippling through the depths.